right, we're back, and you're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm your host here this morning. We're in our second segment this morning. Thanks for joining with us. You can also listen to us every night from midnight to 2 a.m. on Big Country Radio 99. That's the Rooster Radio Network, based out of Houston, Missouri, covering a vast portion of South Central Missouri. And that's my local stomping ground station, if you will. And those folks are very, very gracious and generous in providing us airtime in our marketplace. It's a great way for folks who want to hear America's Voice Now to do so on the airwaves. Yes, it's on a little late at night, but this is a country music station. And so I give them credit because here what they're doing is essentially putting a news talk format on at night in the middle of a country station. And it's country crossover. They throw a little Led Zeppelin and a little Aerosmith in there from time to time. So it's not all twanging guitars. You know, it's funny. I kind of joke around with the owner of the station up there, a guy I like very much. He I kind of coined this thing for him where, in our area here, people wear cowboy hats a lot, or they wear ball caps, and everybody wears a hat around here, except me. I don't wear one. But everybody wears hats. And, the idea is that by day, the people who listen to Big Country 99, they're wearing ball caps and cowboy hats. But at night, they take those off and they put on their Tricorner Patriot hat. And I got to tell you, they're the salt of the earth, the folks who live around here and the people that surround and support and help keep this radio show going. They are some really great folks out there, and I'm very, very appreciative and very grateful and honored to be accepted by them. So, and that's no lie. That is the truth. You won't find more real people, and I mean real in terms of, they're just straight, honest, hardcore, hardworking, happy to be here and trying to fight back the onslaught of evil Americans than you will in the central United States, but especially here in southern Missouri. All right, we're going to tackle this topic of 227 million Americans in a brand new federal database because it's appalling to me that here we've got government so blatant at this point, so obvious, so out front. They're not even trying to hide their tyranny and treason anymore, folks. 227 million Americans will be compelled. Did you hear the word? This is in the Washington Examiner. If you're watching this on YouTube, and you better be sharing this with other people. If you're watching this on YouTube, down in the description section of the program, I'll have a link to this article so you can read it for yourself, as you should do. And then you should use that as the impetus to kick off an investigation of your own so that you are fully cognizant of what's happening, so that you can speak articulately and intelligently to those people within your circle of influence and help spread the word that America has fallen into a tyrannical police state and we are now a fascist nation. Hello. How much more plain do you want me to make it? A new federal database will track Americans' credit ratings and all other financial information. 227 million Americans will be compelled. That's their word, not mine. Compelled. That means forced at the point of a gun, mandated, don't have a choice, to disclose intimate details of their families and financial lives, including their Social Security numbers, in a new national database being assembled by two federal agencies. Need I remind you that federal agencies have no constitutional authority nor legal justification to exist. They are unaccountable, unelected, appointed bureaucrats with a motivation and a goal that is separate and aside from the defense and the protection of the Constitution of the United States of America. I might also add that they don't take an oath of office. Hello? The Federal Housing Finance Agency and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, recently created in 2010, who has run into a problem with their employee ranking system. So basically anybody who is ranked mediocre or above will now be ranked at the highest rating of exemplary, and everybody gets a raise. Hello. If corporate America did that, the entire country would be bankrupt tomorrow morning. Not that we're not already, but we're bankrupt in a government perspective. But every industry in the planet, if they all decided to do that, and everybody got a pay raise based on their non-performance performance, the whole planet would be bankrupt. By the way, we are anyway. For the record, we couldn't sell our country just our nation, for the debt we owe, let me rephrase that. The debt that the United States of America alone owes, we wouldn't be able to sell the entire assets of the planet Earth to, the Alpha Centaurians to cover the debt that the United States owes. That's why I say to you that an economic collapse is not a question of if, it's a question of when, because it's unsustainable. And even the politicians will tell you that, because they're setting you up for the quake. But this database, being built by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, was posted on April 16th in, of all places, the Federal Register, where all treason, tyranny is posted. The Federal Register, where all treason is written down. See, it's so obvious. It's a confession in writing. They've put out there a notice of an expansion of their joint national mortgage database program that will include personally identifiable information that reveals actual mortgage holders. It's a reversal of a previously stated policy to keep your personal information unidentifiable. The FHFA, another curse word. By the way, I consider these kinds of 3- and 4-letter words to be far more offensive to me than any traditional curse word that your pastor his toes would curl if you used. And frankly, that's the way every church ought to be looking at it. They ought to be willing to say those other words on the pulpit and then tie into it all of these 3-letter agencies and 4-letter acronyms that describe every treasonous, traitorous program in the nation. And then say, now, congregation, ladies, gentlemen, brothers, sisters, which offends you more? Treason, or a word used in passing meant to shock you? One is meant to shock you. The other is meant to enslave you. Which would you rather that I use? The FHFA will manage the database and share it with the Consumer Protection or Financial Protection Bureau, just recently created as part of the traitorous Dod Frank bill. Passed and written by, of all people, Dod from Connecticut, who was a traitor extraordinaire, who's now, by the way, part of the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association of America lobbying group, where he's out there working to try to censor the internet so that you might not download a Disney movie without paying $39.99. You got to be kidding me, right? That's the sum total of this guy's life work? What a shame. Frank, that was Barney Frank. You got to remember Barney Frank. Don't you remember big old fat Barney? He was out there smashing all these big deals, making sure that all the financial people had all the motivation they could do. Big old fat Barney. I mean, when I look at Barney Frank, I look at him in the same light I look at a Nancy Pelosi and a Hillary Clinton and a John McCain and a John Boehner. I literally feel sick to my stomach. Literally. They're going to create this database, and they're going to manage and share it. It will cover 95% of all mortgage transactions. 95%. So if you own a home, you're in it. Do you have a choice? No. Did you give your permission? No. Are they going to ask for it? Heck no. They're not going to ask you for your permission. Did you agree to this? Show me. Where? Where did you sign up to say, yes, you may put all my information out there in a database that's distributable to everybody, including my social security number, and violate my privacy? Violate my privacy because it's nobody's business but mine what property I own and who I owe money to. Essentially, every adult in the nation is being monitored. And you see, here's the problem, folks. I've been telling you all along that for a mere $300 per person, and this is their estimate, not mine, that the your own government has a dossier that they're building on you. $300. That's the sum total cost to what it costs them to have enough storage capacity to handle everything about you. They're storing within that all of your purchases, what you own. That's why you're paying personal property taxes, real estate property taxes, all that's going into the database. Everything you buy, all your credit card swipes, all your ATM swipes, anytime you take out cash, anytime you go to the store and you lay down your ATM or your debit card or whatever you want to call it, every time you use a credit card, everywhere you travel, all that information is being collected and gathered. And then it's being inserted into your own database. It shows your traffic patterns, where you go, who you talk to, when you're out on business, what kind of a business do you work with, what kind of a business do you own, who do you work for, who's your employer, what's your job duty, do you travel, do you not, what are your traffic patterns, how can we find you if we need you. It also contains all of your communications. Who do you talk to? Who are your relationships with? Do you have a Facebook page? And if so, who are all the friends that are linked to you? And then, of course, it has the 7 steps to Kevin Bacon. There are 7 leaps to Kevin Bacon, or you know what I'm talking about. The point is, the data points are all into these databases. It contains your relationships. Who have you been married to? How many kids do you have? What are their names? Who are their friends? It covers your spending and your purchases, and the ownership of those products or real estate or real property that you own. Where do you like to go vacation? What are your interests? What kind of books do you read? What kind of stuff do you look up on the internet? What kind of television programming do you watch? You'll notice I use the word programming because that's what it is. Television programming is television programming. Your mind is being programmed by 8 companies. Actually, there are 6 mainstream news media organizations. And by the way, there's only going to be 5 because Congress is hiding and the media is hiding the merger of Time Warner and Comcast, which will create a juggernaut that will blow your doors off. So it will soon be down to 5. They're covering everything about you, your interests. What do you I mean, why else would you have a database like this that covers your medical history and your health? When you're forced to sign up for Obamacare, don't forget, you have to submit all of your financial information that they then verify against your records, your tax records. That's part of the Data Hub service, right? Then, of course, it goes to DHS. DHS does some background checking on you. They're running a criminal background check on you when you sign up for Obamacare. You didn't know that? I don't know why. You've been listening to this program a long time. Then they take that same information and they submit it over to Social Security Administration, and the SSI group goes in there and looks and says, is this person who they say they are based on the financial information that we've got for them, based on the IRS tax recordings and what they've paid into the SSI Ponzi scheme. And then they come back and they say, okay, so this person is who they say they are. No, they don't have a criminal background, or yes, they do. And the IRS comes back and says, yes, but, there's some information that's been floated here. And, of course, when they signed up, as they were required to do at the point of a gun, what we didn't tell them, or we hid in plain sight in code in the language, but it never physically shows for them, is that all the information that they submit enables us to use it for investigation, audit, and prosecution purposes. And those 3 words are theirs, not mine. So you are waiving your 5th Amendment right against self-incrimination. You're being forced to do it at the point of a gun, which is a violation of your 4th Amendment right to privacy. Hello. So meanwhile, now they've got all your medical history records because under Obamacare, every doctor is required to keep electronic medical databases, and they're required to update all of their past history into a medical database. So they know that, you had a kidney stone when you were 32, and they know that, you had some kind of venereal disease, and they know that you've had some kind of cancerous tumor removed, and they know that you've had breast cancer, and they know that your husband has had a golf ball-sized tumor taken out from behind his eyeball. Then they're capturing all of your spending and your purchases. Well, what kind of jeans does this person wear? Why do they shop at the Gap so much? Oh, they spend a lot of money at Walmart. Okay, so let's do this. Let's put out a feeler and buy the Walmart database that Walmart has on them, because that kind of information would be unconstitutional for us to gather. So we'll just buy it from Walmart and we'll stick it here in their dossier. And now they know that you bought Swimmies for your granddaughter. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, think about it. What kind of a picture can you draw from this? Then they track all the things that you own: your car, your house, your boat, your summer vacation, your vacation home, any real estate you've ever owned in the past, any real estate you plan on buying, any mortgages, any applications that you've ever put in for a loan, any kind of car that you own, any kind of cars you've owned historically. Then they look at, okay, so where does this person travel? Where do they go when they go on vacation? Where do they like to go? Where do they travel where they don't spend time in a hotel? We know they're there because we've got the NSA tracking device telling us where they're going, right? Because of the GPS chip in it. But we know that they're not staying in a hotel because they haven't used a credit card. So they must have friends in Albuquerque. Let's see. Let's pull up their Facebook profile and their Google Plus profile. Then let's pull up their LinkedIn profile. By the way, the LinkedIn guy, the CEO of LinkedIn, is over at the Bilderberg conference right now, plotting your demise. But that's a whole different story. So now they've got all of this information, and they know that you've got some friends in Albuquerque because you're not staying in a hotel. And they pull up your Facebook page, and they notate that you sent a Twitter, or tweet out to your followers, how asinine, that you're going to go on vacation, which of course ignited the interest of every burglary guy within a 50-mile radius of your home, but that's a whole different story too. Now they also pull up all of your judicial history and records. Let's see. Have you ever been sued? Have you ever been sued professionally? Have you ever been sued personally? Have you ever been sued or had to file bankruptcy? Have you ever been in court? Have you ever had a criminal case? What kind of traffic fines have you paid? What kind of a driver are you? Let's go ahead and pull their insurance records while we're at it. And we can verify what they own based on the insurance, because let's face it, if you own a car or a boat or a jet ski, you probably have insurance to cover it in case it sinks. So let's make sure we gather and throw all of that into the database too. Then they go through your likes and your dislikes, and they're pretty easy to figure out because they've got all this information about you. They know that you prefer the Southwest over heading north for vacation because you've never vacationed over in Maine, but you consistently seem to go to Arizona and Albuquerque, New Mexico. Then they start to pull up all of your political affiliations. Let's see. By the way, by the researchers' own stated, goals, they can tell you what your political affiliation is based on all this other information they have. And they are 95% accurate. Did you know that? Yes. They are 95% accurate as to what your political affiliation is based on all the other information in your dossier. And if you're politically active, they can see that because it's out there on your Facebook link and your Twitter feed, and maybe you wrote a letter to the editor and all of that, right? The emails that you send, and you can kind of get a, you could read through somebody's email and pretty much figure out where they stand on any issue. Really. I mean, are they conservative-minded? Are they fiscally conservative? Are they fiscally conservative but socially liberal? Are they socially liberal? How did they talk to their friend when their friend exposed to them that they were gay? How did they handle the fact that their son or daughter came out to them? How did they handle the fact when their son or their daughter called and said or wrote them an email about how they were at college and they were involved in a protest? Did they encourage them or not? You get it? I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, folks. You don't even have to have a poli-sci degree or even a psychologist degree. You can just sit there and take a look at this stuff, and if you read enough information about someone, you can pretty much get a pretty good glimpse of who they are. Now they pull your calls and your emails, and they've got empirical proof. Don't tell me they're not collecting your calls. You're an idiot if you believe that, because I just exposed to you the other day that the NSA is recording every cell phone call in the Bahamas and in Afghanistan and numerous other countries that we're not being told about. Now, we also know for a fact that the United States of America is collecting all of the information on American phone calls in relation to the metadata. And we already know, and I've given you empirical proof, that just based on metadata alone, that, and this was a study done by an independent company. They went out there, and with the metadata of the duration of the phone call number that was called, and so forth and so on, that they can pretty much identify you individually, personally. And they can do so 80% of the time using public databases alone. Did you know that? So they take the phone number that was called, and they know you called it, Bob. So they pick up Bob's metadata, and they see the call, how many times it's been made, how long Bob is usually on the phone with number X. They take number X, they throw it into a public database and say, give me a reverse directory listing for this. And it's a girl named Betty. And that doesn't ordinarily create a problem unless Betty is somebody other than Bob's sister. Now, if it's Bob's sister, okay, the calls are once a week and they're an hour in duration, and Bob keeps in fairly close contact with his sister. But if Betty turns out not to be his sister and he's married to Cindy, maybe we got something here. And if the calls happen to be twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, and one of them at least once a week extends to 3 hours, it's very likely that Bob's got a girlfriend named Betty. Then they collect your internet searches, and we don't even want to get into that because now they know more about you based on your internet searches than anything else that you can provide. Is this person worried about the fact that they've got cancer? I mean, they were looking up melanoma on the internet. And we know what kind of prescriptions they take because they looked it up on the internet and they looked at what that interacts with negatively. And they realized that they're not supposed to take aspirin along with this blood thinner, and they shouldn't be taking the two simultaneously. So now we know that they're on a blood thinner and that they take aspirin. And by the way, while they were at it, they Googled all the other drugs they take. So now we know pretty much, and we've got their medical records to confirm and prove it. And it's interesting. They see 4 different doctors, one who's an oncologist, one who is an OBGYN, and one who's a general practitioner. And isn't it interesting that they've got conflicting prescription? So basically, here's what it comes down to, ladies and gentlemen. They're building a digital hologram of you. It's a hologram because you can put your finger through it. But it's 3-dimensional because you can walk around it and you can see the entire thing. And you can see and study every nook and cranny and crevice. You are bare naked before these people using data alone. They know everything about you. They know your likes and your dislikes, your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations. They know how you think. And you see, with that kind of information, you're an easy target if you buck the system. And it'll only be apparent to you when they use it against you. You see, this database already exists. They're just adding more and more and more of them. Just because you don't know the details are there doesn't mean that they aren't. This isn't something you've got to take on faith like religious belief. They're waiting. All of this data is sitting there, waiting, poised to be pulled, and handed over to someone who will become your prosecutor, your persecutor, and your literal or virtual executioner, who will cull you from the herd when your disobedience and nonconformity to the plan have been exposed. And you have absolutely zero say. Because for the 60th year, the planet's masters are getting together to discuss how they can manipulate the herd. The individual doesn't matter. It's the bigger picture. Truthfully, America, I feel sorry for us. Because without a global lights out event, these databases are so vast, the treason is so deep, we'll never get free of it. If there's any vestige of it left, I mean, we'd almost have to go back to an agrarian riding horses planet planet-wide, I might add, in order to just regain anonymity now. Think about it. You're listening to America's Voice. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hit on illegal immigration and how it's being ignored by the Obama administration, how that is an act of treason against the country, and how serious the problem is, because they're pouring across the border, folks, in wave upon human wave. War is being waged against the United States of America by illegals all over the world, and your own government is helping them. We'll be right back. You're listening to America's Voice Now.